goodness me, dilemmas being thrown up. We're going to talk to Claire Purcell and Nigel Nelson, husband and wife team on the papers today. And there's a survey here about which are Britain's favourite sweets. And top of the pops, Claire, is...
Jelly babies.
Yeah.
And it's sort of retro sweets that are making a comeback. And when you sort of look down the list, it's all of the sort of oldies and goodies that you used to be able to get in sweet shops.
But these must still be available. I'm looking at these.
Yeah.
They all must still be available.
They are. I mean, things like jelly babies, fruit pastels, wine gums, cola bottles, you can definitely still get hold of those. But it's quite interesting when you go down. It's things like jelly tots, which I had forgotten about.
Oh, no, I haven't forgotten. I still buy them. Love jelly tots.
No,
Absolutely.
it was those and pear drops and things like that. And I did think that my favourite wasn't on the list, but it is halfway down. I've just found it.
Which is?
Sherbet lemons. I've hidden a packet.
Good for a car journey.
I didn't know that still existed.
I've hidden a packet in your car.
Oh.
Have you?
I have. I've hidden them because otherwise I would just demolish the entire bag myself.
Nigel, what do you see in the list there that you go for?
Well...
It's a good list. It's a good list.
I suppose that we ought to look at Penny Mordaunt.
Yeah.
No, she's not on the list. What are you talking about? I'm talking about
a
sweets.
copy of the sweetie list.
Oh,
right,
sweet.
right.
Sorry, I do
It's not
apologise. I thought we were looking at this.
No.
I mean, my favourite is still jelly babies, so I agree with the survey that they should
When
come
was the last
top.
time you had a jelly baby?
Probably about 3 months ago. And the question is, do you bite the head off or the feet off?
Head off.
Head off.
Yeah, head off, yeah. I'm a head off person as well.
Well, they probably shoved the whole thing in one go.
Yeah.
I did that too.
So, Nigel, apparently your mic's broken as well. So, Skittles, I'll just take about Skittles. I do love Skittles. I like those. Starburst, which used to be Opal Fruits, of course.
Yeah.
To make your mouth water.
And flying saucers at the bottom. I mean, I remember those as a child going to the sweet shop and getting my sort of 5p mix, including the little flying saucers with the sherbets.
Yes.
And,
they always reminded me of Holy Communion.
The wafers.
Yes, the wafers.
That's the closest I got to a sweet. Was never allowed to go to the sweet shop. It was like not
Seriously?
allowed. Yeah, never stepped foot in one.
So what was the idea, to preserve your teeth?
I guess so. My parents aren't really big sweetie eaters. Would like a bit of chocolate. I could do a long diatribe about chocolate, but I don't know. But yeah, Holy Communion, definitely know.
That was Friday afternoon when you finished school. You had your 5 pence to go and get a mix at the local shop.
Pick a mix.
Here's something I don't like: the idea of sour, anything sour.
Yeah.
So tang fastics, the idea that that bitter taste doesn't do it for me.
It doesn't. My son loves those.
Sweet should be what a sweet is.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
What it is.
Dolly
Love
mix
Hearts. Oh, Love Hearts, excellent. I don't see Polos really as sweets. Polo mints are nice, but they're like hygiene things, aren't they? Cola cubes used to cut the roof of my mouth. And controversially, I'll leave you with this thought. Oh, tunic snowballs. Oh my goodness, there's some busy.
It's a trip down memory lane, isn't it?
It is.
Yes. Cola cubes, which I liked, but only after you sucked them for 2 or 3 minutes, because they would cut the roof of your mouth. They were quite... The corners on them.
They were sharp.
Quite sharp enough, yeah. But anyway, very nice. Good list, good list. I do love fruit pastels, though.
Oh, yeah, you can't beat.
More so than jelly babies. Close call. But
no, fruit pastels are good, but the whole packet will just disappear.
I don't understand, Nigel, though, how we're not allowed to buy ricicles and things at the supermarket. They're banned from supermarkets. But you can buy fruit pastels which are dipped and coated in sugar.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, which are just pure sugar.
Yeah.
But these things, I mean, the amazing thing about these is the dates they go back to. So Jelly Babe is 1864.
Goodness.
The one I'd have thought was a modern one was cola bottles.
Yes.
And that goes back to 1892.
Really?
Wow.
I mean, it must be almost...
something slightly different then, I don't know.
Well, I mean, presumably before Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Yeah. OK, well, that's a little trip down memory lane. Very, very good.
Shall we talk about mobile phones, Claire? It's been a big week for this. They're being banned in schools, finally. Also, there's this big movement amongst parents who've been calling for smartphone-free childhoods. But what about the hypocrisy in all of this? Because I'm all for stopping kids having smartphones, but I am always on my phone for various reasons.
Yeah.
But the Children's Commissioner has come out and said, actually, parents have to set an example and set their phones to one side.
I mean, it feels a little bit like you can't put the genie back in the bottle, and we live our lives around technology. But I do get her point. Rachel D'Souza is right when she says that you see a family at a table at dinner and everybody's sitting there on their phone. Where is the art of conversation? And I do think that there is a place for technology, but there's also a place to put it down. And we are probably the worst examples. Nigel certainly does live on his phone and will quite often be found in the way, in the kitchen, standing there, head down, looking at it.
What I will say is that's his job. It's not some 10-year-old's job to be on a phone doing the same thing.
No, it's not, but I think if kids see what their parents are doing, they're going to emulate that. I think that the banning of smartphones is... I think we've lost that. I think we are beyond the point of being able to take that technology away.
But isn't that sad, Claire, or even you, Nigel? I mean, don't you think for youngsters specifically, they're missing out on so much if they've got their nose down? I mean, we're all guilty of it. You can be at an event and nobody's actually in the moment. They're all photographing or filming it. You're walking down the street, nobody's looking, or on the train, nobody's looking out the window, seeing the environment they're in, nose down, quite often doom scrolling, let's be honest, not actually getting time that they could get back. I think it was Jamie Redknapp recently said the one thing that's really frustrating him about young footballers is the waste of their time. They come off the pitch, straight onto their phones, wasting their youth.
Well, I mean, I think that's true, and so the ban in schools seems to be a good idea, although the argument is they're already banned anyway. The other thing about sort of young people is this idea of when they're watching, for instance, television, they have what's called a primary screen, that's their phone. The secondary screen
becomes... that do that, Nigel. You tell me you don't do that.
Well, I have the phone there, but I don't actually look at it while I'm watching something on the TV.
He does. He does.
Because you're half here. It's fantastic.
Because there'll be a breaking news alert that will come in, as we've all had.
I will look at it.
Pop up, but, you know,
but I won't stare at it. I won't go through.
You would be using your secondary device, whilst your primary device.
But what I won't be doing is something that Claire does, which is scrolling through social media as we're trying to watch a drama on the telly, which actually requires a bit of.
I think that's
a bit of attention.
Multitasking. I understand what's going on in the programme. It's got to a bit of a slow part in a drama, so I can scroll through at the same time.
I'm with you, Claire, but I do still always come back to this point, and that is that if you watch the social experiment, whatever it's called, the documentary, none of the executives that invented these phones from Steve Jobs down let their kids anywhere near them. Says it all.
It does, but then they foisted them upon the rest.
Yes, but they won't do it to their own children. Why? It's an addiction.
Claire, we're going to have foisted upon us 4 new films about the Beatles, directed by Sam Mendes. And the thing is, these are about individual members of the Beatles, the Fab Four: John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr and George Harrison. Do we need 4 films?
Well, I think it's quite an interesting look at the Beatles, arguably one of the greatest bands that we've had, who has been the inspiration for a lot of people. And Sam Mendes has said, how do you do the real story if you're only ever going to look at the band and you tend to then only really pay attention to Paul McCartney when the other members are equally as important? So each one is going to have their own film. So you will get a view from each. And I think it's a really interesting way of doing it, because I think there's a lot that I don't particularly know about George Harrison and his life and before the Beatles and what happened after. You know bits and pieces, but because when the Beatles stopped being together, Paul McCartney was always around, Ringo Starr, because he did the voiceovers in Thomas the Tank Engine. You know, you looked at those people and you understood what they were doing. So to get the attention on all of the band members equally, I think it's a really good idea. And this is coming out, be released from 2027, so it's no time soon. But I think that
initially I thought it was too much, but I agree with you now what you're saying, because Ringo would always have been regarded as sort of inconsequential. And when you look at his talent, Nigel, maybe the best drummer in the world, and George Harrison, the songs that he composed and wrote and scored and whatever it is as well. So there's a lot. It's not just Lennon.
Well, I think that John Lennon said he wasn't even the best drummer in the Beatles. The ones I'd be quite curious about, if you're making a film like this, is the ones who didn't make it. Pete Best, who was the drummer before Ringo Starr, who they dumped.
Can you imagine how you'd feel
Well,
yes.
I know how he has felt all the way through.
Yeah.
And the other one, Stuart Sutcliffe, who died sadly very, very young, but he actually abandoned the Beatles just before they made a success, but he would have been the bass player.
Yeah, imagine. Oh, that would be a hard pill to swallow, wouldn't it?
This is what you could have been. I think that's quite a harsh look at it, to be honest.
That'll be followed by film on the Monkees. You'll get there.
Yes,
the Monkees weren't bad, you know.
They weren't. I'm sorry. They do appear on one of my playlists on my phone.
Yes.
Which I listen to.
Which one? Last Train to Clarksville?
Yes.
The last train to Clarksville.
You see, I'm not going to
meet you at the station. I could be there by 4:30. And I forget what it was about the destination.
I don't know, but you can sing it loudly in the car.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Right, migrants. Now, Rishi Sunak has hit out at what he terms the completely ridiculous breach of the UK's borders by small boats. Rishi Sunak's got this knack of blaming everything on everyone else, and it's as if, hey, look at this. What's this migrant thing going on? Nothing to do with me. Has it anything to do with him, Nigel?
Well, yes, quite a bit, really, because he hasn't come up with a solution to deal with it. So what he was doing here is that he was talking to Daily Express readers who are putting a number of questions to it. It's all the familiar stuff. Oh, Rwanda will be a great deterrent, which it probably won't be. Must get the flights off the ground. The one really interesting bit was a question he was asked during this, which was why we don't turn the boats back to France, which is a question that keeps coming up. And Rishi Sunak answered this by saying, look, we can't follow Australia. In Australia, there were bigger boats. If we try and turn the boats back, which are no bigger than paddling pools, we'll overturn them and people will drown in the channel. And this question keeps coming up about, oh, can we send these people back to France? Well, we can't. There are no international waters between Britain and France. In Australia, which had a different system, you're talking about 180 miles of international waters and much bigger boats, which is why you could do it.
I mean, it just is nothing new, and I think this is the frustration, is that we see the Prime Minister saying, I'm going to be really tough, I'm going to stop the boats, which is ridiculous and isn't going to happen. But there is nothing new that comes out of it. So when you read through the article in the Daily Express, it's some people bringing up the same concerns that have already brought up, and the Prime Minister answering exactly the same as he's answered every single other question to do with stopping the boats, telling people that he's got a plan. Well, OK, yes, you might have a plan. It doesn't mean, A, it's going to work, or B, it's going to get through the Commons, or C, that you are even going to make it to the next election before it happens.
Yeah, I mean, stop the boats is just not going to happen. Whether or not even gets a plane off the ground remains to be seen.
The boat's going to continue coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Claire, let's go to this story about Penny Mordaunt. She's the Tories' only hope, according to a new poll. I thought that was Boris Johnson yesterday.
Well, I was about to say, as a different day and a different Tory MP comes up as top of the list. This is a Delta poll survey of voters of the Conservative Party in 2019 is who they think is going to be the best leader. And we just go round this ever-decreasing circle of who can we put in next, which name can we put up there. And today's job is, you know, that one of Penny Mordaunt, sword carrier extraordinaire, leader of the House of Commons. Fantastic.
Great hair.
Great hair. Lovely dress that she wore to go marching around with the sword. But does she want to do it? And can you just remove another leader to put another leader in without having an election? Because I think that the public are running out of sympathy for the Conservative Party, saying, well, we don't like who we've got, so we're going to put someone else in and it'll all be fine. I get really angry about
the sword carrying actually sort of got the nation to love her. And then they hated her when she turned up at the Tory party conference. They gave that really weird speech.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Do you remember that? Fight.
It was so
That's right.
weird.
But fight what? It was all very unspecified what she was fighting about, but it was completely odd. Yet the sword carrying, you all thought, God, that's really good.
We're not that far off, are we? A potential situation where they'll be looking for a new leader. Apparently, Norman Lamont was spotted going into Downing Street yesterday to possibly give advice on a tax-cutting budget. Because apparently, the day after he cut taxes in 1992, John Major instantly announced a general election. Yeah. And there are lots of people speculating that Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt could actually do exactly the same in 2 weeks' time.
Yes, because also yesterday seen going into Downing Street was Isaac Levido, who is the election guru for the Conservatives.
Recently seen coming into here, I should also point
Absolutely.
out.
I mean, you can make of it what you will. There is going to be an election this year. We know that. We don't know when. I still think it's going to be May, and everything is lining up to go for that date. But you cannot look at changing the leader again, and I can't stress this enough.
Unless they lose.
So we know that the Prime Minister is a great fan of GBNEWS, so Rishi, please don't allow this to happen because we can't go through another vanity contest. We need to get the country running properly.
And you're right, that, I mean, if Rishi Sunak loses, which is likely, the fact that he's never been voted for by anybody as Prime Minister means that he will definitely have to resign immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
Looking into your crystal ball, Nigel, how do you see the future for Penny Mordaunt?
Well, I mean,
will her time come?
I do think that she could be a possible contender, but as Claire says, it would be mad to try and do it now. After the election, it's going to be a battle between the right and the left of the Tory party. So Penny Mordaunt's a bit on the left. You'll have other contenders like Kemi Badenoch, Suella Braverman, Priti Patel will probably throw her hat in the ring. So you've got plenty of representatives from the right. It's a question of finding someone from the left.
But has Kemi Badenoch, by involving herself in this post office scandal this week, has she strengthened her chances or weakened them, do you think, Claire?
I think weakened them, and there's also the problem with the trade deal with Canada, which is causing a little bit of an international incident with Canada saying there is no such deal, so please don't talk about it. She wasn't particularly popular with her colleagues the last time round. I think she got maybe 17 in the first round. So I think this won't have helped her. But I think all of this really does depend on who comes back after the next election.
OK. Guys, you'll be back sometime in the next couple of weeks. We look forward to seeing you again. Claire and Nigel, appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed.
Up next, Alex Burkill with your weather.